Season rolls on, and we roll on the 10 here on the Bet River Sports Network. I am your host, Greg Waddell. That's Doug Kezirian. We've got 5 great Big Ten hoops games in the middle of this week to preview and give you some best bets for along the way. Before we get into everything on the card, let's remind you, we've got a great promotion for you here at Bet Rivers. It's our CSR second half bonus bet. The second half of the conference schedule is heating up. Bet Rivers is giving a bonus bet to use as we come down the stretch. Get a $10 bonus bet to use on college hoops with code CSR216. Go to your Bet Rivers app, enter the bonus code CSR216. Get that $10 bonus bet to use on any college basketball game that you would like. This offer ends on March 8th. You must be 21. Eligible players only. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We've got 3 Wednesday night games. We've also got a game on Thursday and a big one in this conference on Friday. Let's start with that Thursday night tip in Mackey Arena. It's the Michigan State Spartans at Purdue. We project Purdue minus 5.5 here, total around 143.5. Any thoughts?
Yes. This is a tricky one to kind of handicap. I'm on Purdue here, but not by a large margin. I just don't like this Michigan State team that much. I think it takes a borderline act of Congress for them to play well. And that includes Izzo saying all the right things, getting them to, do certain things, responding, whether it's calling out fears and whatnot. Obviously, they're a good team. I get it. But this is not a team that I want to be in a foxhole with. I think they've been outclassed by a lot of squads. They probably show up here, but they've been fairly unreliable on the road, all things considered. So I'm not in a rush to back them here, but 5.5 is a tricky number. So no thanks on actually firing on this one, but I don't want any part of the underdog here either.
Yeah, I have the same gut feel that you have on the Spartans here. The problem is I'm kind of feeling those same feelings about Purdue right now. The word front runner tendencies has been thrown around with Purdue a little bit. And look, I think they can outclass with skill most teams in this league. Michigan State is just a program under Tom Izzo that you can't really outskill. You've got to have a toughness component that goes with it. And I look at Purdue's biggest performances this year. They've really corresponded well with dominance on the glass. Games that Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough find success there usually get their shooters open, get some second chance opportunities going. I don't know how many of those they'll get against a Michigan State team that truly is elite nationally on the boards. And I know Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper don't always look the part physically, but they're up for challenges like this. So I don't know. It's a weird game for me. Purdue is 4-1 against Michigan State outright in the Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer era. But that loss came last year with a team that is more similarly structured to this year's Purdue team. I think if the number's 5.5, that feels right about what I'd expect. I'll be watching for line movement either way. If it gets up to maybe 6.5, 7, I may play the underdog here. But if it stays around 5.5, I think it's a pass for me. Let's turn to the Friday night game. And this one I've been looking forward to all year. I've had it circled. I'll be in attendance in Champaign for Merez Johnson Jr.'s return to his former program. Michigan can clinch the Big Ten title outright. They've already earned a share with their victory over Minnesota on Tuesday night. But you can't tell me that for Merez and for Dusty May, it wouldn't be extra sweet to get that outright banner at the expense of Merez's former program. You'd expect a juiced up environment, and Illinois is the number 1 offense in the history of the KenPom database. We project Michigan minus 1.5. I'll speak for myself personally here. I won't be surprised if this is a pick'em. I won't be surprised if it's Illinois minus 1.5. I won't be surprised if it's Michigan 1.5. You could convince me of anything here, Doug. What do you expect?
Expect a high-scoring game, and clearly we think the odds makers will as well. I was hoping this one would be in the low 50s. I don't know why, maybe wishful thinking, because I do think just what the Wolverines do and how they attack. And obviously the Minnesota game was very different than what we're going to see here in Champaign. Gophers obviously slowed down the pace, very methodical, everything. But I think this is going to be an up-and-down game. Wolverines want to make you defend at all times. They put pressure on the rim and pressure on the three-point line. Now, I think Illinois is going to get into the half-court offense. They're going to want to lean on their bigs, but like you said, the most efficient offense. So I do think it's high scoring, but at some point, as we've learned from Alabama games, these totals can get to a point where under has value, and I wonder if that's where we are. So I was hoping it'd be like 154-ish. I was going to play over. Now I think it's under or pass, just because a scoring lull and the length of the Illini may disrupt some of the shooting for the Wolverines. And just when you get these type of high-profile games with atmosphere and everything, you're just not going to be as fluid offensively. I know that's the game plan, but there's just an element of where you become more measured and methodical. It's like why the fourth quarter in the NBA often just dies down, because you just get, again, measured and methodical. So I just wonder if a minute and a half, 2 minute scoring lull with a couple sloppy turnovers can really sort of skew this under. So I'm really close to pulling the trigger on the under if it's this high. 158-ish, I'll probably stay away. In terms of the side, I think it's a coin flip. I agree with you. It could go either way. I will say Illinois, how they looked against UCLA, just that happens. You win the front end of a 2-game road trip in conference. You kind of lollygagging around on the road, this time in LA. And they went through the motions after they were up big, but also Wagler getting hurt was a big factor in that comeback. I think at least he did return, but still. So I just like the Wolverines. I bet on them on Saturday and ate it against Duke. I think this is a coin flip. I typically kind of shy away from these big games because they're so, look, both teams are going to show up. It's going to come down to a couple big shots. Like, I don't want to, lay juice in a coin flip game. I'd just rather kind of bully some bad teams or pick on some good value spots. I just think this is going to be an awesome game to watch, but the under could get me off the bench here and fire away.
Yeah, I like the look at the under, and I think it correlates with an Illinois victory, which is where I lean on this game. I think Illinois, their best path here would be to limit possessions, slow this down, dare Michigan to shoot, and throw up over 55% of their shots from three. And they have enough size and length to do that against a team in Michigan that will sometimes settle for too many jumpers. I certainly think in the half court, Illinois is going to be playing at a snail's pace. I think they want to preserve energy. I think they want to keep Keaton Wagler, as fresh as humanly possible in a game you're probably going to need close to 40 minutes from him against. It really is just a fascinating matchup. And it's going to be sort of a battle of which team can execute. If Michigan executes, I think it probably goes over and they win. If Illinois executes, I think it goes under and Illinois wins. But the matchup things in this game are going to be so fascinating. I mean, Illinois will test Michigan's defense more than any team they've seen. That 5-out, the mismatch hunting is going to create quite a conundrum for Dusty May because Adai Mara has struggled with perimeter shooting centers, and Illinois is going to play 2 of them this entire game. I really don't know how you can keep Mara on the floor defensively in this game against the Ivisic brothers. If he's not on the floor, then you see Merez Johnson at 5. Theoretically, in a big moment for him, I think it's a pretty good matchup for his physicality and his effort on the glass against the Ivisics, who have looked like monsters against some of the lesser opponents in this league, but kind of met their match on the boards against some of the better, more physical teams. So, your guess is as good as mine how this goes. I think even Yaxel Lendeborg is going to be an interesting player to watch because the way you can get to Keaton Wagler a little bit is with size, with physicality, athleticism, pick him up full court. We've seen Yaxel Lendeborg do that to some of the smaller guards in this conference at times. I would think they use him and Roddy Gale to try and wear Wagler down over the course of the game. I am just excited to watch this, but I will say, I come back to one thing. Brad Underwood has owned this Michigan program for 6 years. I mean, it has been, I think, 8 or 9 games since Michigan has found a way to beat Illinois. This is not the Juwan Howard era Michigan Wolverines, but we've seen top 10 matchups in this series going back 4 years ago when Michigan was pretty good, and certainly last year in Ann Arbor when a not so great Illinois team walked in against a pretty good Dusty May team and embarrassed them and ran them out of their own gym. So I think the matchup problems are real. I tend to side with the home team here and the under, as you so accurately scouted out for us, Doug. All right, 3 games on the card for tonight. Let's turn to Maryland on the road at Nebraska here. It's Cornhuskers minus 16.5. Our total is locked in at 141.5. What do you like?
It's Nebraska or pass for me, and I think it's Nebraska. I'm not going to pull the trigger here. In terms of a pass, I am going to pull the trigger. I think the question comes down to, is Maryland sort of like professionally mature enough to play well in back-to-back games? Now, we did see back-to-back wins when they went to Minnesota and won and then came home and beat Iowa. I was very surprised at that performance. But other than that, this is a team that leaves a lot to be desired, especially defensively. And they got the big win over Washington. Give them credit. Made plays down the stretch. Obviously a tight game. I just think their defense is so bad. And it's going to be open gym shooting for the Huskers. And it's a big number. And I get it. You might get the backdoor. You might get scrubs in. We talked about it last week with Nebraska and Penn State. It was, the line was 20.5. The game was sitting 20 with 2 minutes to go or whatever it was. I mean, that's a coin flip, right? But I do think this is more likely to be in the low 20s than in the 12, round 12 or 13, where Nebraska doesn't get covered. And if I remember correctly, they got backdoored against Washington in that kind of a situation with a line 12.5 or so. And it was just one of those fluky games because the Huskies pounded the glass and got a bunch of boards and second chance points down the stretch in the last 10 minutes or so. I don't think Maryland shows up. I do like Buzz, and I think, I was surprised at how poor they played for long stretches this year, and I liked that they've been playing a little better of late, but I just think the Huskers just open shooting here. As long as they make a decent amount of threes, they're going to be fine. I just think they're going to be unguarded.
I agree. I like the over here. Maryland's been a great over team all year. We've talked about Maryland overs quite a bit on this program. Nebraska's been a pretty great under team, and that defensive scheme is really a tough matchup for a lot of teams. The reason I like the over, I think Nebraska will score at will, to your point. The execution, the passing, the skill that they've got. They never take bad shots. They really don't turn it over much. And Maryland is a defense you can pick apart that just loses their man so often. I think back to that Purdue game in Maryland where they just kept losing Fletcher Lawyer over and over again. I expect big performances from all Nebraska stars, but the reason I end up getting there with the overs, I actually think there's multiple paths to Maryland finding some offensive success in this game as well. The Nebraska defensive scheme forces you to take over half your shots from 3. It's a dramatic schematic approach that sort of swarms post touches and any dribble drives. And the thing about Maryland, they don't have many shooters, but they are a team that loves to shoot the 3. They're 46th in three-point volume this year, and I think they're going to be comfortable kind of taking those shots. In games where Maryland has covered the spread and surprised teams and hung around against some of the best, they've gotten hot from 3. We know that Diggy Coit is a guy that can do that. Now, I don't expect that to happen against a Nebraska team that does a pretty good job taking away the primary three-point makers. But even if they miss their open threes in this game, I do think they can find some second chances. Nebraska is not the world's greatest rebounding team. That defensive rebounding mark they have, 56th in the country, I think is a little misleading. I think back to games, again, against Purdue for Nebraska, where they gave up like 16 offensive rebounds in that game. I think you need one of two things to happen for Maryland. Make some open threes or get some second chances. I think one of those two will. And while Nebraska scores at will, it should be enough to ultimately push this game over. Next up, we turn to Iowa City, where it's Jake Diebler's Ohio State Buckeyes on the road at Ben McCollum's Iowa Hawkeyes. It's Iowa minus 6.5 here. It's actually up to 7.5, as you see in front of you, and the total has stayed firm at 141.5. If you are so bold and you expect the Jake Diebler team to get a big road upset win that could stamp their ticket to the NCAA tournament, the Buckeyes are plus 230 on the money line at Bet Rivers. What interests you, Doug?
Well, first things first, the injury report interests me. Are the Buckeyes shorthanded, Greg?
I think we expect that to continue. I have not heard a positive update on Mobley.
Yeah.
Devin Royal should be a game time decision. I was surprised that he got no run at East Lansing this weekend against Michigan State.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So it's, I mean, to be determined for me in this game. It feels too big of a number. And I say that as someone who's lost money on the Buckeyes too often this year. I had Virginia against them. I've just been looking to fade them. And they've disappointed me. So, certain things. I wasn't on them in the Wisconsin game. I was actually on them against Sparty, just, like I said earlier in this show, I am just not the biggest Sparty fan. I've been impressed with, Thornton I knew would be good, but he's been really good. And just how the Buckeyes have kind of handled their business. I felt like there was a tax on them too high for me in the USC game, but they got the win. But overall, I've been fairly impressed because I didn't think much of them. In this game, I just wonder if they're going to run out of steam. But I like their physicality. I think in the first half or something like that, they can keep this inside the number. I worry if they're shorthanded, the game gets away from them, but they can muck this game up. And I like where the Hawkeyes are, in terms of a program, McCollum and everything. They've kind of been disappointing of late. Obviously they've lost 3 or 4, but I just don't, that onslaught of 3-point shooting and everything just hasn't been coming like maybe some recent Fran McCaffrey teams have. Sturts is excellent, but this, again, the barrage of threes isn't there. So I would lean Buckeyes, but I think I'd really like Ohio State here on the first half.
The number trending where it is trending here, I think does indicate that there could be injury concerns, absences for the Buckeyes. Up to 7.5 is rather large in my personal opinion. And I think I'm going to end up playing Ohio State here. Injuries be damned. They put up a good fight at the Breslin Center this weekend, and it takes a lot to impress me if you're a Jake Tiefler team, but there was some real toughness to that performance. I thought Christoph Tilley really was up for the challenge of the Michigan State bigs, and if you can get some confidence banging around against Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler, the Iowa bigs should not scare you whatsoever. I think Tilley's a mismatch in this game. And I look at Thornton Sturts. This is two of the best point guards in the country that are competing for all Big Ten accolades. I don't know how much they care about them. Thornton should care about an NCAA tournament appearance for the first time in his college career. He's got a chance to do it, and he really needs to pick off just one of these kind of upset spots in order to get there. Ohio State has alternated wins and losses for a month and a half, and they're coming off a good performance against Michigan State with a loss. It may sound crazy here. I'm going to back Ohio State on the money line here.
Oh,
230. I think we can get a Thornton game where he outplays Sturts. And as limited as Ohio State may be on the injury report, Iowa at full health is a pretty limited team themselves. I expect some offense here from the Buckeyes, and I think Thornton's good enough. Am I crazy, Doug?
You're violating your rules of thumb and your mantras. This is great. That's what's surprising me. I guess I swore off Wisconsin and USC for a while. Then, of course, I find myself betting them again. So these are always temporary sort of commandments, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to burn your Bible of betting rules, and that's what I've done here. Jake Diebler, don't make me regret it, for the love of God. One more game tonight. It is those Badgers you just mentioned, this time out west against the Oregon Ducks. This is down to Wisconsin -4.5. It opened at 5.5, and Oregon around +185 on the money line. Big total here, as you would expect with all Wisconsin games, 151.5. What do you think?
Well, considering a week ago, I had Oregon -2 at home against Minnesota, and they scored 17 points in the first half and 44 for the game. Maybe I shouldn't be looking at any Ducks games in Eugene for the time being, but I like whiskey here. I just think the upside of this team, this could be certainly a tight game, wire to wire, and I'm sitting here laying points on the road and feel like an idiot. With that being said, I don't think a ton of this Oregon team, and you just wonder this late in the season with this new world of transfer portal and everything, you just wonder how much senioritis is kicking in for the Ducks players and maybe one leg out the door, Dana Altman and whatnot. I just think Wisconsin's a team you sort of want to be much more, comfortable going to the window with. And of all the variants, like the possible outcomes here, I think the variance. I think I'd rather have a Wisconsin ticket here than an Oregon ticket, but you're not going to get rich laying points on the road in these types of situations. More times than not, the home dog's going to get home. But I think the Badgers get there. I think the upside of Wisconsin's there. I mean, 100-1 right now at Bet Rivers to win it all. Again, you don't need to play great for 6 games. You need to eke out, get to the second weekend, play your best game against a higher seed, shoot the lights out like they did at Chrysler, and all of a sudden you start to have a path there to get to the championship game. So that's something that I think. Now they could also get bounced early, as we've seen, and they could certainly lose this game outright. But that's what happens when you have a 100-1 ticket, and that's what happens when you back the Badgers.
Yeah, it is. I'm torn between a couple different angles here. I wouldn't hate an Oregon first half number, although I really am not looking for reasons to bet Oregon. It's just the travel spot for Wisconsin, right? Off a really impressive win over Iowa. They go out west. This is a Wisconsin team that we have seen so often in conference play start slow, dig a 10-point hole, and then have to dig out of it. And Nick Boyd's going crazy in the second half to steal a win. I just kind of think they're comfortable with game scripts like that. So, you get 2.5 points with Oregon. It just wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if the Ducks are winning at halftime and Wisconsin has to come back. But I think the play I actually like more here is Wisconsin team total over 78.5 is what I'm seeing it at. This team is really just so potent offensively, and they can go on these 4-6 minute scoring bursts. They can go cold for half of a half and then just rattle off 30 points in 10 minutes like it's nothing. And they pick apart the worst defenses in the league. If you look at the games that they have played against teams that are outside the KenPom top 100, they scored 98 points on the road at Penn State. They scored 96 points against Rutgers. Even in their more recent games against teams that slow tempo down, Michigan State and Iowa, they scored 92 and 84 points here. Even if they start cold, as I suspect may happen, I just think we're going to see them pick apart an Oregon team that is so depleted. You're going to see them put Nick Biddle in a lot of ball screens on the perimeter, make him guard a couple stretch bigs he has to chase around. I'll be shocked if Wisconsin doesn't end up in the 80s at minimum, but really could get to the 90s just with a good second half performance. Okay. There we have it. 3 games for Wednesday night, as we mentioned, but 2 big ones in the next 2 nights. Doug, from your choice of those 5 games, what is your best bet?
I'll lay it with Nebraska. I think in these types of situations, you always want to look to the next game, the look-ahead spot, all that. And there's just nothing that I think is distracting the Huskers. They're not Michigan looking ahead to Illinois like the Wolverines did against Minnesota. They have a trip out west next. I don't know if that's going to really distract them. I think the Huskers aren't. They're sort of new to this ranking and sort of Big Ten party that they can't afford to look past opponents. I wouldn't be shocked if Buzz and company muck it up and play hard and get the loose balls and all that stuff. But I don't love my other options either. But I'll roll with the Huskers here as technically a best bet. But nothing like last week. I really liked Wisconsin on Sunday.
Yeah, I was with you on the Badgers. Thank you for that play. And I am with you. This isn't my favorite 5-game card that I've seen in the middle week show. Hopefully we get some this weekend that we have stronger leans toward or plays. I am going to take Badgers team total. I think they get to the 80s. 78.5 is about the lowest you'll see a Wisconsin total. And if you want to hedge your bets on this, feel like playing Oregon first half is a good way to do so. One of those 2 should probably get to the finish line, and wouldn't surprise me at all if we see like a 40-37 Oregon lead at half, where Wisconsin just takes off and gets the afterburners in the second half. There you have it. Thank you for watching the 10, as always, here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. We are part of College Sports Rush, where you can also watch Sports Bettor's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week. The show will be back on Friday, 2 days a week, Wednesday and Friday, for you down the stretch run of the college hoop season. Thank you, Doug. Thank you to all of our production team behind the scenes. Thank you to you for watching, folks. Cheers.